Good morning and welcome to Live Without Limits. Stop holding yourself back. Your breakthrough starts here. Welcome. Okay, let's start all over. I would like to welcome you to Live Without Limits. Stop holding yourself back. Your breakthrough starts here. This podcast is where we talk about transforming your thinking so that you transform your life. Today, we're exploring a powerful idea that can completely change the way you see your past, your present, and your future. The idea is simple, but incredibly profound. There are no mistakes, only lessons. Everything we do, we learn from. That's why, unless we recognize our mistakes, we will keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Most of us grow up believing that mistakes are something we avoid at all costs. We're taught that making mistakes means we failed, that we did nothing wrong. On that, we somehow aren't good enough. But what if that belief actually is one of the biggest things holding you back from achieving the goals you have for yourself? What if the way things you call mistakes are actually the moments that shape your wisdom, your resilience, and your future success? Today, we're going to talk about why mistakes are part of growth, how the fear of mistakes keeps people from the difference between a mistake and a lesson. So how to reframe your past experiences and how to use every setback as a stepping stone forward. By the end of this episode, I hope you'll walk away with a completely different perspective on the word mistake. Because when you change how you see your mistakes, you change how you see yourself. And this is why often you will have someone that sees perfection and will keep trying to do the same thing over and over again until they reach that perfection. But you know what? There's no such thing as perfection. Now, let's start with something important, like why we fear mistakes. Why do people fear mistakes so much? For many people, it starts early in life. Maybe you were criticized when you got something wrong. Maybe mistakes were treated like failures instead of a learning moment. Maybe you were told things like, why can't you do that right? You should know better. That was a bad decision. Or you can't do anything right. Always the can't, the can't. And when you believe you can't, then you can't. The matter is, how are you going to turn something around and change how you see yourself and how you can believe in who you are and how you can become the person you were truly meant to be? Because over time, these messages create a powerful belief inside us. The belief that mistakes mean we are not capable, not smart enough, or not worthy. But here's the truth. Every single person who has ever succeeded at anything has made countless mistakes along the way. Entrepreneurs make mistakes. Writers make mistakes. Leaders make mistakes. Inventors make mistakes. The difference is not whether they made mistakes. The difference is how they responded to them. Successful people understand that something most people don't. Mistakes are information. They tell you what works, what doesn't, and what to adjust. In other words, mistakes are part of the process of progress. Well, if you go back to the self-help industries in the 60s, in the 20th century, or rather I can say during the 20th century in the 60s, it was an awakening because we were coming out of the 50s, which was very conservative, and it was the beginning of what they called the rock and roll music, and how we saw things became a way of opening up your mind to new concepts, to new ways of thinking, to new ways of doing things. And you had Eric Berne with transactional analysis, which talked about the parent, the adult, and the child. The child always says, I want, and finish the sentence. The adult says, I am able to, and finish the sentence. And then the parent says, you should. And how these things overlap. And when your parent is telling you, you should do it this way, you should do it this way. And if you don't do it perfect, and if you don't do it perfect, what happens? You internalize that. And then instead of other people constantly saying it to you, you have internalized it to the point that you are repeating it to yourself over and over again. And that is what keeps you and causes you to develop that head trash and to create a opportunity for you to put the brakes on before you even get to the end result and achieve a goal. Therefore, understanding why you do this, where it comes from, and how you can change how you treat things and do things, then and only then can you put yourself in that position of achieving the goal you want. The difference between a mistake and a failure. One of the biggest mindset shifts that you can make is learning the difference between a mistake and a failure. A mistake is simply a decision that didn't produce the result that you expected. That's it. It's not a judgment of your character. It's not proof that you're incapable. It's simply feedback. Failure, on the other hand, only happens when someone stops trying. If you learn, adapt, and move forward, then what happens wasn't a failure. It was a lesson, something that you can learn from. Because, we look at it, we want to go from point A to point B to point C to point D. But what if you can't take a state road? What if you have to zigzag your way to getting to where you want to go? Maybe, and prior to GPS, if someone didn't tell you exactly how far it was, or what streets to pass, or what intersections, it was easy to put yourself in a position where you turned the wrong way, or you went the wrong way, and it took you longer to get to where you were going. So technology has helped improve things to help us live a better quality of life, but it's also helped us understand how it's easy to make mistakes. And think about it. What if Benjamin Franklin gave up? What if Thomas Jefferson gave up? Where would we be today without lights, without the things that moved us forward back in the 18th, 19th, 20th century when the inventors developed things? Now we have AI, which is artificial intelligence, and it's a way to do research. For instance, I need to replace the brace that I wear on my hand, and I was given 4 options. I went online, and the first thing I did was ask it, which one is the better one for the condition I have? And then which one is the best one for the size, is the best one for my needs? So understanding that if I didn't have that research to go back on, I would be guessing all the way. In fact, I ordered one, and the size that I currently have, it was a totally different model. And that particular model I had to send back because it was too big on me as opposed to the one that I currently have. So understanding just how much that if you look back on what they knew and how things changed and what they did, because I recently met someone that she also has the same disability I have, but because they did surgery on her at a much younger age when she was growing. She does not have as pronounced a limp as I have, and she has a little bit more mobility with her hand than I do. But the difference is that both of us have exercised, both of us have worked towards living a better quality of life within the limitations. And how we deal with these things is how we learn. Think about a baby. When they are born, they're totally dependent on you. They eventually, as they get older, learn to crawl. Then they learn to stand. Then they learn to walk by holding on. Then they learn to take steps on their own. And a child, it has no limitations on them. And they literally believe that they can do anything. It's as we get older and we hear things and we try things and we don't allow ourselves to make mistakes that we give up in life. So recognizing where you're coming from. Now, think about learning how to walk as a child. When babies fall down while learning to walk, no one says, well, that's a baby, is a failure. Falling is simply part of learning how to walk. But somewhere along the way, as adults, we forget that principle. We start believing that falling down remains and means we should stop trying. And that belief keeps people stuck for years. So understanding why you do something also helps you get to that point of understanding that mistakes are just a part of life. Reframing your past. Let's talk about something powerful. Your past. Most people carry around a list of what they believe are the biggest mistakes. Maybe it's a relationship that didn't work out, a career decision that didn't go the way you hoped, a business that failed, a time you trusted the wrong person, a moment when you doubted yourself. But here's the question I want you to consider today. What if these weren't mistakes? What if these moments were actually shaping you into a person you needed to become? Your past experiences gave you wisdom, awareness, strength, discontent. Sometimes the hardest experiences in life teach us the most valuable lessons. They teach us who we are. They teach us what we deserve. They teach us what we will no longer tolerate. And they teach us how to move forward differently instead of asking yourself, why does that happen to me? A more powerful question is, what did the experience teach me? Remember, everything we do teaches us something. Every experience we have teaches us something. All the relationships we have teach us something. Because when you find that the lesson you reclaim your power. So recognizing what your power is and how you can take better control over your life. Now, the fear that keeps you stuck. One of the greatest obstacles of success isn't lack of ability, it's fear. Specifically, fear of making mistakes. Think about how many dreams never happen because someone is afraid of getting it wrong. People delay starting a business. They delay writing their book. They delay speaking up. They delay sharing their ideas, not because they can't do it, but because they're afraid of making mistakes. Here's the irony. Trying to avoid mistakes often creates the biggest mistake of all, never trying. Growth requires experimentation. Progress requires movement. And movement sometimes means getting things wrong before you get them right. But every attempt teaches you something valuable. Every step forward gives you more clarity, and every lesson moves you closer to success. And here I want to talk about personalities because that is part of what and how we respond to different situations. If you're very outgoing, if you're an extrovert, you're going to either have a dominant personality or you're going to have very strong interpersonal skills. And when you have a dominant personality where you feel you can control everything, then you're more willing to accept and get beyond and use a mistake as a learning tool. When you have very good interpersonal skills, you're willing to sit down with someone and ask them, what is a better way to do something? How can I correct it? But if you have an introvert where you have that steadiness personality or the conscientiousness personality, what happens is the steadiness goes literally by the book. And if the book says you do it this way, even if the book and the way you do things has changed, that's what the individual is going to do. If it's a conscientiousness behavior pattern, then you're going to question everything. And remember this, you have all of these different behavior patterns within you. Because remember, that young child is someone who questions everything because they're open to learning. And then And when you communicate with someone, you need to better understand what their strengths are, because it's a way to work with someone as a team player, and understanding that how you deal with it, how you work with it, helps you get to that point where you can be open to dealing with things. And we talk about why opposites attract each other, because if someone's an introvert and someone's an extrovert, then they balance each other out. If you're two introverts, then what's going to happen? There's going to be no support. There's going to be no encouragement. If you are two extroverts, what's going to happen? There's going to be conflict on how you deal with things. But understanding how to communicate with each other in a way that helps one another also gets you to that point where you can be willing to open up and deal with things, and be willing to try different ways of getting to the end result. The growth mindset. People who achieve extraordinary things usually share one powerful mindset. They see life as a process of learning. Instead of asking, did I fail? They ask, what did I learn? This is known as the growth mindset. A growth mindset believes abilities can develop through effort, learning, and persistence. Someone with a growth mindset understands that every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger. Think about athletes. When athletes lose a game, they don't simply give up. They review what happened. They analyzed what needs improvement, and then they come back stronger. The same principle applies to life. The experiences are constantly giving you feedback. The question is, are you willing to listen and learn? And that's where, when you look at your personality, when you look at how you react to things, and understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, it helps you to be open to dealing with things in the way that allows you to begin to understand just how much making mistakes is nothing more than a learning opportunity. Taking yourself to the next level and understanding where you come from, and understanding how you can become that person you were truly meant to be. And one of the things that we need to understand is, as a child, our parent is telling us what to do, but they're only basing it on their own experiences and how they say things and how they react to different situations. So, and often how you deal with something may be very, very different than how they would deal with it. So recognizing what your experiences are, recognizing where it all comes from, and recognizing just how you can truly be that person you were meant to be, is making mistakes. Because the things that you choose to do, as opposed to what your parent wanted to do, you know, I know someone that she had basically, as a child, had a good vocal ability, and actually went to train with the opera, but because her mother was a singer, she felt in competition with her mother and never pursued that as a goal. Even when she went and studied to become a lawyer. She was never successful as a lawyer because she did not know how to take herself and put her and learn the skills and be willing to deal with the mistakes she was making and understanding where it came from. She ended up in a bad marriage that her partner had some mental health issues and just didn't know how to deal with it. And in a lot of ways, she never succeeded because deep down, she never believed in herself and her true ability, turning mistakes into momentum. So how do we turn mistakes into growth? Here are a few powerful questions you can ask yourself when something doesn't go as planned. What does this experience teach me? Every experience contains a lesson. Your job is to find it. What would I do differently next time? Learning means making adjustments. Each lesson gives you new insights. How can this experience make me stronger? Difficult experiences often develop resilience. They show you how you're capable of overcoming. How can this lesson help someone else? Sometimes the greatest purpose of your challenge is to help others navigate their own. When you share your lessons, you transform pain into purpose. So, see that? Where are we going with this? And how is it up to you to recognize that mistakes are always being made, and how you deal with those mistakes determine how you are going to deal with life in general. Before we wrap this up in today's episode, I want you to think about something. Think about one experience that you're in your life that you've labeled as a mistake. Ask yourself this question: what did that experience teach me? Maybe it taught me to trust my intuition. Maybe it taught you to set stronger boundaries. Maybe it taught you more resilience. Or maybe it led to the path you're on today. Because sometimes the very things we call mistakes are actually redirects. They move us away from the wrong path and toward the right one. So today, I want to leave you with this thought. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by where you learn them. Every lesson makes you wiser. Every challenge makes you stronger. And every step forward, it moves you closer to the life you're capable of creating. Remember, there are no mistakes, only lessons guiding you toward growth. So, recognizing where you're coming from, where you want to go, how you are going to get there, and understanding that you're always going to make mistakes along the way, and how to change it, to treat yourself as though it is a stepping stone to growth. And every step forward moves you closer to the life you're capable of creating. Remember, there is no mistakes, only lessons guiding you forward and toward growth. Think. And I want to thank you for joining me today on Live Without Limits. Stop holding yourself back. Your breakthrough starts here. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep living without limits.